Click. Did that work? Why didn't that work? Here we go. Here we go. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. I don't know what that's about. Something just went ping on my phone. And I'm really glad that it did because I want to talk to you about this thing today. It has really stumped me. I can't think of the name for this thing that happens. And I was trying to look it up, and of course, when you don't really okay, look up a thing you don't know, and it was frustrating me. And I have kind of an inkling, but I don't think I'm correct. So I thought I would throw it out there because this really crazy, wonderful thing happened yesterday on the phone with a longtime client of mine. And a similar thing had happened late the previous night when I received a message from an even further back client that I hadn't heard from in a long time. So, and there's a very interesting synchronicity there. So, sip of coffee. Cheers. So the thing I want to talk about is this. You know, when you're with a group of friends and you're talking about something, you're telling a story, and all of a sudden, you can't think of the word that you need to say in right now in the moment, and so you're kind of stumped. And then just a complete stranger walking by in the background, who has clearly heard the first part of the conversation, says the word, and you turn, they grin and you grin, and they keep going, and it is a really weird. I mean, it's very cool. Good morning, Freddie. It's a really weird feeling. It's almost as though somebody just stepped inside your head for a second and pulled out the word for you and handed it over and then just kept going. And at the same time, well, it's weird. It's also really kind of lovely that it's a proof in real time, and there are witnesses because there you are, that somebody is on your wavelength, that you are not alone. We all have this thing about I feel alone, and I don't know if anybody likes me, or I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, or why isn't this happening or that happening. And so many people right now, especially in the aftermath of the complete upside downness of the pandemic, we don't really feel anchored or tethered. We don't feel that we have a rudder or that we're even tied to the dock necessarily. And everybody's feeling kind of isolated and shoved out onto their own little separate ice floe, floating around in the dark. And so when these moments happen, when it's clear proof that we are connected more directly than we realize, it's a funny moment of, wait, what was that? And I know that when it's happened to me, I have this overwhelming desire to go and say hi. Because this person knows me, knows inside my head. And on occasion, rare, I have been the stranger walking by. Somebody's talking, and I hear the thing, and I will say the word and keep going, and you enjoy the look of surprise and delighted smile on different people's faces, and the laughter, because when that happens, when you just drop in the word, it's a moment of recognition for everybody. Now, it happens more frequently. I know personally, it happens more frequently with people who you're really close to, because you're in and out on the same wavelengths all the time, because of the close proximity and the practice that you have talking to each other and getting to know each other's senses of humor or personal passions and whatnot. And it's easier to drop yourself in and out of what they're saying and doing. Even so, when that happens, it's a kind of a giddy feeling that you kind of stepped in and you went boop and stepped out, and it's there's a real frisson. It's a little kind of a woohoo thing that goes on, and I don't know what it's called. I mean, there's all these words that people are using, synchronicity and, vibrations and all that stuff. But what it feels more like to me, and I'm about to say something that, oh well. So way back in the day, long time ago, people didn't have cell phones. They had landlines, and a landline is one that is literally plugged in to your house, and it's on the ground or goes up a pole or whatever. And way back in rural areas, to save money, when you'd only have so many houses, so many farms at great distances, and probably it might even happen today when there's terrible cell service. Anyway, there was such a thing called a party line, and it was a less expensive service, and what it was different subscribers were put on the one line, and when the phone rang in your house, you had a special ring. Maybe in my house it would be two long and one short, and in the house down the road it would be three short, and so you knew that the call was for you, or you just wanted to listen in and eavesdrop, and you pick it up anyway. And the thing was that you could listen in on each other's calls because it was just the one line, and that's what this feels like to me in this weird kind of way, because it's as though for one split second the other person's thought pattern crossed over into yours, and it's just a bloop, bloop. And it has often occurred to me that twins probably feel a closeness different than other siblings, possibly because that happens to them, possibly because of so many similarities. And I don't know, I'm not a twin, and I've never asked identical or fraternal twins if that happens. It wouldn't surprise me though, because there would be so many things that would be so closely aligned. I know that quite often twins will show up in the same place, or they will have events in their lives at similar times. This thing, so yesterday and then the night before, the same conversation, slightly different words, happened with two clients of mine, former clients of mine, who have never met. Never met. I've never told either one about the other. The only way they would accidentally discover it would be if for some reason they went on Amazon and looked up each other's books. But how would they know? Because when I ghost or I edit somebody else's book, my name isn't on it unless specific permission. So the weirdness of this was that I just want to click on something here. Just wait. Oh, there we go. Feel the same feeling when TV plays a program that I was just thinking. Yes. Freddie's just saying that he was thinking about something, and then he realizes that when he turns the TV on, it's the thing he was thinking about. Yeah. And it's a weird sense that we've crossed over into something and then crossed back, and we're not physically aware of it. So anyway, these two clients, what is curious is that they both were motivated to write their books after they had survived a very, very serious accident, a highway accident, and both of them had traumatic brain injury. Both of them were considered to be miracle survivors because their injuries were horrific. Both were traumatic brain, and so in similar areas, vastly different specific circumstances and recovery times, and then follow-up stories and attitudes and interests and things that they've had to overcome in the aftermath. And separately, differently, both of them experiencing unexpected triggers, but when you think about it, it shouldn't really be that unexpected. Huge waves of gratitude and relief in moments that they didn't see coming, and compensating behaviors they've had to adopt and adapt in order to be able to live completely full lives. And so those are the similarities. Both are women, and but that's it. So to hear from one I hadn't had any exchange with in maybe 8 years, and the other one I have recently been talking to, but we had stopped working together 5 years ago. And it is only recently that we've had a couple of telephone conversations about how things are going. And the really interesting thing about the trigger that brought this up in my head yesterday was the one I've been talking to on the phone. We were having a conversation, and she was very frustrated by something that is difficult to manage. And she said something like, "It feels like I'm all alone." And I said, "It's perfectly reasonable to feel that way." And honestly, when we are in the middle of something and we are by ourselves, it does feel like we're alone. We're not alone. There are people all around us who care about us, and there are people all around us who are going through similar things. But while we are all by ourselves facing this, it can feel like that. And it's normal. It's also not true. We're not alone. How we experience a trigger, how we experience something that really blindsides us, that is a struggle, is always going to be a little different, because we are a little different. We're all completely separate and different in that way, but we're not alone. And I had just finished saying that when I heard her say on the phone, "Oh, hi, honey." And then she said to me, "It's my son. Give me a second." And I heard him say, "Hey, Mom, I just wanted to say, I hope you know that you're not alone, that we're all here for you." And we weren't doing a video call. That's the thing. And she had me on speaker. And I just sat there. And she said, "What?" And he said, I was on my way out, and I just wanted to stop and say, I'm really sorry you're going through this. We're all, all of us, we're really sorry you're going through this. And we just want you to know we're here for you." And then he said, "I got to run, and love you." And he left. And there was this silence. And I said, "So, how you doing?" and she said, "What was that?" And I said, "I have no idea. I have no idea. But that will teach you, won't it?" And she said, "No, but seriously, what was that?" And I said, "Magic, magic." "Oh my God." And she said, "I almost want to cry." And I said, "Well, you put it out there and you get it back." And I said, "What you're struggling with is something you have to stop thinking about, I guess, as a solitary uphill fight. Maybe it's time for you to see it as a lesson. And by golly, you're going to learn it. And don't make me call in my troops." And she said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "That's never happened before." And I said, "Well, it certainly hasn't happened to me in a while either." And I said, "Well done." And she said, "I just don't know what to say." And I said, "Well, that's okay. That's okay. You want to take a breather? You want to take a break?" And she said, No, we have to finish talking about this other thing." And then we moved on. But there was this awe. There was this wonder in her voice, and her tone, and her quality in her voice was softer, and she was more open. It was more like we were joined by her inner child who was not feeling jaded and bitter and and angry and frustrated because there had been this little ping of love and connection and uh, I mean it's not that he could sense or could not sense what his mom was thinking. It's not that, because of course he would. It's her child. No, no, he walked in minutes, seconds after I said it. And he and I aren't on that wavelength, but something crossed over. It was a party line moment. And I thought, okay, we we need to find out if there is a name for it, because I want to use the correct term. And if there isn't a term for it, if nobody has identified it, then I think it is a party line moment. I think it's a pivot line moment. It's something significant where what we thought we were doing, what we thought was this, turns out to have all of these other layers in it. It's a tapestry moment. All of a sudden, the other threads are visible, and it's magic. And I wanted to share that today because another thing that happened, and this is this was on Tuesday afternoon. Um, I had to go and deal with a very difficult situation. Once again, part of the wrapping up of the legal and the financial matters that I am in charge of. And a similar thing happened, not quite the same. I walked into a financial institution in Ottawa, an Ottawa branch of that financial institution. And I had all the paperwork, and I asked to see the manager. And I sat down with the manager, who came out and said, "Yes, and how can I help you?" And, "Oh, I see you have an account." And I handed her the documents, and I said, "Can I do this? And can I do this without it taking 3 hours?" And she said, "Well, I don't see why not. Let me have a look." And she looked at the documents, and she said, "I see." And what it was that it was something from the province, directed to me, but not directed to me by name, but me by the authority I now have as the executor of the estate. And I needed to be able to put something into the bank. They had given me some way to transfer something into the bank, and I had no idea how to do it. So I just brought all the documents, and I said, "Here's my status, my standing. Here's the legal recognition of that. Here's this, here's that." And she said, "Yes, give me a minute." And she logged in, because everything is now computer connected. There are no secrets now. She logged into not only my personal account with them, but also the estate account that I'm now supposed to be in charge of when everything is cleared. And she said, "Oh, that's interesting." And she said, would you give me a minute?" I said, "Please." I'm thinking to myself, as long as it isn't 3.5 hours, I'm all yours. And she sat there and she read for quite some time. It could have been maybe 2 minutes, which is a very long time to sit silently in front of a stranger, right? 2 minutes, a long time. 10 seconds in front of a stranger can be a long time. And she looked up and she said, "I have to say this the right way." She said, what I'm reading here is disturbing. And her eyes were tracking back and forth. So I knew she was looking for the right words, because she has a position and she has responsibilities. And she said, "It's disturbing, and it concerns me. I do have to say, however, that strictly speaking, none of it was illegal." And I said, "Okay." And I said, it's of great comfort to me that what you're reading concerns you, because it has concerned me. And she said, and again, she had to be very careful because, of course, there's responsibilities. And she said, taking off my hat as a professional and speaking to you as a woman, and recognizing what you have gone through, it is disturbing that it does not appear that people took that into consideration. And speaking to you personally as a woman, I'm so very sorry you had to go through it. And I said, thank you. And she said, and then she was about to, and she just shook her head and she said, so let's see what we can do. And she did whatever she had to do, and she hit some keys and punched some buttons and said some imprecations up to the universe, and something went ping, and she said, it's done. There you go. And I was maybe with her for 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the tops. And I said, when I nominate you for sainthood, do you want a tiara or a cape? And she said, oh, tiara, every time. Capes you have to keep taking to the dry cleaner. And we both smiled at each other. And I said, tiara it is. Because we have choices. We have the freedom to combine what we are supposed to do and what, as human beings with a level of compassion and empathy, want to do. And if we put our minds to it, we can find ways to make room for both when circumstances allow. And this woman I had never met. I walked into this institution and she did her due diligence, and her decision, carefully made, I watched her making it, I watched those eyes tracking back and forth, was to bridge two realities. Now, was it of professional benefit to her? Absolutely. Because do I want to remain a customer? Yes. Was I very seriously thinking of finding the quickest way away from that particular institution? You bet. You bet I was. Am I now having second thoughts? I am. Why? Because she was kind. Because she took the time. Because she chose to identify and balance her worlds in order to accommodate another human being. And that is a voluntary thing that we do or don't do. We opt in or out. We lean in or not. And it was, I had braced myself to do that, to go there, to be part of that. And Shazam, incredible. So when this moment happened yesterday with my client, and the night before in messaging with the former client, and I saw the similarities, and then I saw, heard, felt what was going on in terms of that little party line blip going on with my client's son commenting on the subject she and I had been discussing, and using my words. It is, as I said in the little text leading up to it, we're welcoming people who are on our wavelength. We are inviting people to be on our wavelength all the time without realizing it. We're putting it out there. And the people who swim into our orbit, who float past on the tide, when they're receptive, they have the choice to opt in or not. They could hear it and ignore it, or they could hear it and join in, however briefly. And when it happens, the kind of a ooh, what was that? Ooh, and ooh, what was that? That happens is a complete game changer, isn't it? When it's happened to you, it's a complete wow. What was that? And I think it's a recognition point. It is a where the back of the brain and the front of the brain have an aha moment collectively when we realize that we're not the only one swimming in the pond. And somebody else is a friend, not a foe. Would you look at that? So I wanted to mention it today, obviously because it's amazing, and obviously because it puts a smile on the face. And also because I have discovered over time in my career that, and almost anyone who is in some form of strategic communication, sales, connecting to strangers, finding out their reason for being here and trying to speak to their reason as opposed to trying to bash them over the head with your narrative. This is why this is on sale, instead of that listening to what they're telling you without telling you and trying to tune into that. This thing that we use all the time to try and get on each other's wavelength in order to have a shared common goal, purpose, conversation, in spite of the barriers and the boundaries. This is something that we used to do a lot more of because we used to do a lot more things in person. And even when we were on the phone, with or without video, the sound of the other person's voice made it easier. Now that we're doing a lot more texting, there's greater room for misunderstanding because a static word is a static word. And one of the things that I say to my author clients all the time, there's a really different challenge when you want a message received, not only in the way you meant it, but in the way you meant to trigger them. It's a hugely different challenge when it's static, and it's not something that you can alter on the fly, because it's something that is just sitting there on a printed page. And I have said over and over, forever and ever, putting life into static words on a page is a mammoth challenge. And it's one of the reasons that so many writers have all these stories of being up in the middle of the night, banging their heads on the pointed corner of the desk, crumpled up pieces of paper overflowing the wastebasket, screaming and yelling and threatening to throw the computer screen monitor out the window, wanting to stomp on the tablet or the phone because they can't find the word that has some kind of addictive, highly viral connection already stuck all over it. It's so difficult to do well. It's really easy to do it badly. And so when these moments happen unbidden, they are magic. And I think that for our benefit, especially, the weather is getting colder up here in the northern climes, and in other parts of the world it's very topsy-turvy, and there's a lot of unrest and confusion and anger and fist pumping and waving and all that kind of stuff going on. And in those climates, it is difficult. It is really difficult for us to set all that aside and step away from the seductiveness of the other kind of party line, where we aren't saying what we mean. We're parroting what other people have said in order to feel like we belong. That's not what this is. And if you have had what happened to me happen to you, you know the difference. You know the difference. You're in a conversation and you say, "Oh my God, what is the word? And you know what I'm saying?" And somebody walks by and says, "Gelendesprung," and you say, "Yes, yes." And the other thing I wanted to say, because this is going to be quite a short video today, it's, well, 30 minutes. In the wake of the loss of Matthew Perry, the actor who was the source of so much of the wit on the television series Friends, he died tragically too early, and yet perhaps not too early given the suffering that he was going through. One of the things that has happened on social media is various platforms, they're running clips of best favorite moments. And one of the best favorite moments are the bloopers. And I found myself watching a few of them last night, just before I went to bed. And not only did I remember some of them, I remembered very clearly how crazy, funny, magical it was when there were bloopers on my shows. When some ridiculous thing would go wrong on You Can't Do That on Television. And the blooper aspect was that a mistake happened and one of the actors jumped in and said something completely ridiculous and yet absolutely perfect for that wrong moment. They didn't know it was going to be wrong. They didn't know a mistake was going to happen. It's not like they prepared, but the mistake happened and they randomly said flirp. And everybody, including all the crew, including the people on the floor in the control room, you could hear them through everybody's headsets laughing, all the actors laughing. I mean, the scene is ruined, except that the connection, the relationship, the layers of our relationships were instantly deeper and instantly more lovely and special and magical, because not merely the silly blooper, but the way everybody in that moment connected and wove themselves into it. So there were a couple of bloops that happened that I watched last night from Friends that triggered all of my pure joy, absolute pure delight at the magic that I got the privilege, the gift to live. And then the live events that I have participated in, the live stage shows in which there's no 7-second delay and something happens and it is delicious because what? And the audience gets to see something, or somebody in the audience says something, and the rest of the place falls apart. And it's our job to try and keep going because we're not supposed to know that there's an audience when it's a stage show. And when that fourth wall is broken, is trespassed. And okay, technically that's a big no-no. How the hell do we keep going? In spite of all of that, something happens. Until the end of time, when I bump into an actor or a cast member or a crew member from one of those moments, the first thing that happens years later, decades later, after they, "Oh my God, how are you? Gosh, it's been such a, like, you look amazing. Oh my gosh, I've missed you," and so on. Inevitably, one of us says, "You remember?" And we go, "Yeah," because it has become part of what our relationship means. And I think what I'm saying here today on this post is we deserve more of those. We deserve to feel those special, unexpected, crazy connections with each other. We deserve them. If it's true that they exist and we're just not aware, then we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to each other to stop kvetching and moaning and focusing on the crap that we have no control of. If we focus on the past thing that upset us, if we invest all our time and energy, oh, what's going to happen? I mean, what if this? What if this? Okay, yes, good to plan, not good to obsess. Because while we're over there and while we're back there, we're not giving ourselves permission to be here. And here is where we are. And here is where we are together. We don't get to live a quality life if we give ourselves permission to be absent, to phone it in. We lose that opportunity because I know from those walking by, toss it in, grin and walk away, knowing that everybody went, what? What? That doesn't happen twice. It's a one-off. That's part of the magic. It's unexpected. It's out of nowhere. It's a one-off. And we need to be present for those because they're all around us. They're all around us. Every single person who is weighing in, every single person who is seeing this, who is nodding and smiling and posting a heart or saying, oh my God, you've been there. And the minute you've been there, you can't wait to be there again, right? Right. So this is incredible. And this is something that really deserves our conversation. Oh my God, remember the time. It's delicious. It's utterly delicious. And while we're in that moment, the other amazing thing is that it's eco-friendly. It has no calories and it doesn't rot your teeth. It's also perfectly legal. Why wouldn't we encourage it? Why wouldn't we say we'll have more of that? Why wouldn't we? And I don't have an answer for that. So as we go away from this video today, give it some thought. I have not been able to find a definition for what that is. And I tend to do a lot of research. So dig in if it makes you curious. Dig in, see if you can find it. I tried synchronicity. It's not that. I tried coincidence. It's not that. I tried, what was the other thing that I tried? Wavelength. No, it's not that. And what I did get instead was a whole bunch of, I have no idea. And so I need to have somebody who's up on this kind of topic to be able to tell me what it is. All right. And then we will have a name. And if in fact there is no name, we're going to invent one. All right. So it's Thursday. The weather network said a warming trend for the next 2 days. I looked at the temperatures. It's going to go all the way up to 7. What is 7? I'll tell you what it isn't. 7 is not a warming trend, unless, of course, the day before it was minus 40. But it's not on its own and in its own right a warming trend. It's a minuscule this way and then back. Anyway, wear socks. Just saying, wear socks. Maybe bring gloves if you're in my part of the world. And whether you're in my part of the world or not, thank you for watching. Thank you for jumping in and being part of this magic. This was today, episode 196. We are 4 away from 200. Is that incredible or what? So this weekend, I'm sure you're busy. I'm sure you have things. I've noticed an uptick in people who are, now that we're a lot more indoors, I've noticed an uptick in people who are getting some sort of cold respiratory thing going on, probably dust allergies or whatnot. Just be good to you. Be good to you. Take the time to look after you. Not only for you, but for us, because, we care and we don't want to see you suffer. We want you to be hale and hearty and able and willing and ready to be the one jumping in to say Glennisbrum as you walk by. We love that about you. Okay? So be good to you. You deserve it. Hug your loved ones and have a great weekend. And I will see you next Tuesday. Thank you for watching.